Hi, I'm Ray Peachey. I'm the Substance Abuse Prevention Coordinator for the town of Westford, and we're here to talk about Health Beat, stuff to do with health within our town. I'm here with my guest, Arnie Price, who is the food inspector. Arnie, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, I've been in the food business all my life. After I got out of college, I went into the bakery business in Lowell. And once I left the bakery business, I taught for 24 years at Greater Lowell Technical High School. I taught culinary arts, baking. And during the course of that, I applied for this position. It's a part-time position. And was lucky enough to get it. And I've been doing this part-time since 2007.
Okay, good, good. How did you see it? Advertisement? Somebody tell you about it?
I saw it advertised in the Westford Eagle, I believe.
Okay.
Now you're asking me to remember 12 years ago.
I know.
But, I believe that's where I saw it.
Okay, good. All right, so I got a couple of questions from different people around when I told them you were going to be on this show. One of them is, how do you schedule an inspection for a food place?
We have a database that we log the date of each inspection into.
Okay.
And we do it on a rotational basis. So for the most part, we do every place in town twice a year. There are some places that we consider high risk.
Okay.
And we do those places 3 times a year. They're considered high risk possibly because they serve a high risk population, or they serve a wide variety of foods. They prepare a lot of foods, and there's multiple cooking processes. For example, they would prep something raw, cook it, cool it, refrigerate it, cool it properly, refrigerate it, and then when it came time for the customer to order it, they would take it out and they would reheat it. So that's called multiple cooking processes. Okay. So there's about, 7 or 8 places like that in town.
Would a buffet be something similar to that?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Not exactly. The buffets are usually pretty straightforward. They need to keep the hot food at 135 degrees or higher.
Okay.
And the cold food at 41 degrees or lower. So that being said, to everybody at home, that your refrigerator, if you're keeping cold food in there, your refrigerator should always be 41 degrees or lower to keep that food safe.
Okay.
The 135 or higher, just think about when you're having your Thanksgiving dinner and you have all that food out on the table, yep. Right? And it's been out there for 4 or 5 hours and you're gonna make sandwiches.
You don't do it?
No, I don't do that, no.
Okay.
Think about how long it's been out there, because typically in the commercial industry, it should be 135 degrees or higher. Bacteria, once it gets over 41 or below 135, will start to form in food. And in the restaurant, after being in that zone, 41 to 135, we would have them discard it.
Okay. Now let me ask you, let's get somewhat into Thanksgiving. I know we won't deep. We know the turkey's been out there.
The cooked turkey.
The cooked turkey, yes, a little longer. All right. Can we microwave and reheat it and it be okay?
Sure. You absolutely can.
Okay.
In a restaurant, they have to reheat to 165 degrees.
Okay.
But let's talk for a minute about the raw turkey. So you buy a turkey and it's frozen. People will, put it in their sink or throw it in their bathtub or leave it on the counter.
Yep.
The best thing to do is to take it out, I would say, out of the freezer a week before 5 or 6 days.
Okay.
And put it in a refrigerator. That's the best way to thaw. And then if it's not totally thawed, then put it in cold water to thaw it, the rest of the way.
So
don't leave it on the counter.
No, I know. So we thaw it out. It takes a day, wouldn't it? Take a day?
No, a big turkey, like a 20-pound turkey, would take, in the refrigerator, will take multiple days.
Oh, okay. So you're saying put it in the refrigerator, thaw it out, though?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Got you there. I'm just wondering, 5 or 6 days, it's like, whew, that
well, in the
thing's
refrigerator.
Oh, okay. Yes.
It'll thaw very quickly in water.
Yeah.
Cold water.
Yep.
Because stop and think that in a restaurant, if they're going to thaw it under running water, the water can never go higher than 70 degrees.
Okay.
Okay? But that turkey is 0 to 10 degrees, so that's a 60 to
Yeah.
70 degree difference, so
Yeah.
it's going to thaw rather quickly.
Got you on that. All right, let's talk about inspections. How do you start an inspection? I mean, I know you get in the morning because we almost work next to each other.
Right.
You get in the morning, you know what you're going to do that day anyway.
Pretty much.
And then how do you go from there?
So we do our inspections by computer. So I pack up my gear, so to speak, and I go to the establishment that I'm going to inspect. The first thing I like to do is what I do a drive-by. I do a drive-by around the dumpster area because I want to see that the dumpster's closed. I want to see that it's clean around there. Okay, and then I just will circle around to the parking lot.
Back doors closed?
Back door's closed. All the doors are closed, matter of fact. Yeah. And then I'll walk in, and at this point in time, I've been doing it for 12 years. They all know me.
Yes.
And I'll just say, and if there is somebody in there who is not familiar with me, I'll say, hi, I'm Arnie. I'm from the health department, and I'm going to do your inspection today. And they may go get a manager. If a manager's not there, they may ask me to come back, which we don't do.
Okay.
But we're going to do it no matter who's there, because the person in charge should be knowledgeable enough
Correct.
to make sure that everything is done properly.
Correct.
And then I get started. Depending on the different establishments, I know I establish a routine. You know, like I know when I go into a grocery store, we have two, obviously, Market Basket and Whole Foods. I have a routine that I take the same path each time.
Right.
That makes it easier for me because I'm not going to miss anything. Hopefully I'm not going to miss anything.
Right.
And I do the same thing. I do the same thing at both Market Basket and Whole Foods because those take close to 3 hours.
That was my question. Okay.
That's about a 3 hour.
Yep.
So that's the way I do it. That's the way I go in, and I'll walk around, and I'll have questions for people. I don't necessarily ask all the questions to the manager. I ask them if some ask if they would like to, if they'd like to follow me, and I would say that's up to you. It depends on how busy you are. I said I can do this. Whatever questions I have, I can get back to you. And when I go around, if I'm not sure what's going on in a certain spot, I'll ask one of the staff members. I'll just say, tell me what's going on here, because I can pick out if it's right or wrong for the most part. Tell me what's going on here, and then they'll tell me. So I'd rather ask the people who are prepping the food
Right.
rather than the manager to check on their knowledge of food safety.
Exactly. Okay, that's good. So they can't say no.
No, if they do say, well, this is a bad time, can you come back? The answer is no. And my response to that is, you're required to provide safe food, whether it's slow or whether it's busy. Now, that being said, I am not going to do Market Basket 2 days before Thanksgiving, right? I am not going to do one of the Asian restaurants 2 days before New Year's Eve because it's just not fair to them. I have a good idea. I have a solid idea on their day-to-day processes. Those days are unique.
Yeah.
You know.
What about like noontime?
Oh yeah, I'll go in at noontime.
Okay.
Yep, I'll go in at noontime.
All right.
And oftentimes they're busy, but I try not to get in their way. I say, you don't have to follow me around. Just let me do my thing, and I'll type. Then what I do is I take notes because carrying the computer around I found was just too difficult. I have a notebook. I take notes, and then I'll sit down somewhere and I'll type it up on my computer. And once I input it into the software, I'll review it with them.
Yeah.
And we either mail the report to them by the U.S. Postal Service, or we can email it to them. We have a software program for inspections.
And how did you get that software program?
We got it through a grant. from the FDA. It's actually not the FDA, it's called AFTO, but they're associated.
Okay.
Don't ask me what AFTO means right now, I just can't think of it. And the grant window comes out every year. They offer 3 or 4 different types of grants. And Jeff Stevens, our director, he wrote a grant that gave us like $15,000, which we're able to purchase the software and the computers and the proper training and stuff. The grant window also provides us an ability to get a training grant, which I write.
Okay.
And that's worth $3,000 a year. We've been lucky enough to be awarded it for the past 5 years.
Okay, good.
And we can go to a training anywhere as long as we don't exceed the 3,000.
Right.
Like this year, if we're awarded the grant, hopefully we'll go to Texas for it's called a plan review. Any new establishment that's coming in has to submit a plan with sketches of the interior, placement of the equipment. We have to do some calculations to make sure they have enough refrigeration for the amount of projected meals per day. So it's quite involved, and I mean, I've been doing them for since I've had the job, and but you never know everything. So the more training you can get, the better.
Oh, and things change.
Yeah, things change, and you always pick up something new.
Well, I know listening to you guys in the office, there's a new health food plan or food something.
There's a new food code we're going to implement in starting January 1st. We're going to move to the 2017 food code. And I believe that Westford will be the first one in the Commonwealth that's going to implement the 2017 food code. A couple of years ago, we went to this sounds crazy, but a couple of years ago, we went to the 2013 food code, because prior to that, for a number of years, we've been on the 1999 federal and state food code. And that's because the state wanted it that way.
Okay.
The food protection program. So we've been moving along. The state has made some changes, and the big thing on the 2017 food code is that every place that cooks food is going to be required to have a certified food protection manager on each shift. Previously, it was one 40-hour per week person at the establishment. This, I think, will help them do a better job at what they do.
How is this person going to be certified?
This person will be certified by taking an approved class.
Okay.
The state approves 4 vendors or 5 vendors. One of them, the more commonly known one, is ServSafe, but that's a brand name. That's not. Okay. That's a brand name. That's done by the National Restaurant Association. There's 3 other vendors, I believe. So they sit through a class and they take a 80-question exam, and they have to get 75%, 60 out of 80, to successfully pass the class. So
will they know most of those questions anyway?
Sometimes.
Okay.
But that's the reason for sitting in on the class.
No, I understand that.
So the town of Westford runs classes from time to time for cost. The classes are costly because you have to hire there's a lot of people who get approved to be a proctor and instructor. And there's a state list. I am one of them. And at times I'll do it. Somebody will call me in who knows where, Woburn, Tingsboro, because I'm on the state list, and ask me if I can run a class. We do it in Westford for $75, which is the cost of the materials. And we just do it as a good thing for the establishments and for the community. And that's not limited to the establishments. We send it out. We send it out to everybody. Residents can sign up for it. Anyone. Okay. Anyone who has a relation to the town of Westford. Okay. So, and they generally fill up pretty quick.
So everybody on shift is going to basically.
Not everybody.
No, I'm sorry. One person per shift. Is going to have something similar to the ServSafe.
Right, and those certificates should be posted in the.
Okay, as the food inspection one
Yeah,
should be.
as the food permit that the health department issues.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Good. All right, let's go through a food inspection. How,
All right, so I look around and I see if there's any, let's say, food debris, or I check out the physical facility, right? Make sure it's clean, the floors are clean,
okay,
the equipment is clean, you know? The first thing I kind of look for when I go in, are they wearing gloves while preparing your food? Now, gloves are required when they're preparing what's called ready-to-eat food. Ready-to-eat food is any food that's going to go directly into the customer's mouth. It's going to be eaten. Okay, so if they're preparing raw meat, they don't need to wear gloves. Okay, and
Okay.
the one thing I'd like to tell the people is that when you go into a pizza shop and they're making pizza and they're putting all the toppings on, okay, so those toppings are already cooked. So is it ready to eat food? Yes, it is. However, that pizza is going into a close to 600 degree oven. So they don't need gloves to put the toppings on the pizza.
gotcha. That all,
right.
the bacteria will be
Because the
killed.
bacteria is going to be killed by the high temperature.
Okay.
Right, so I do that. I check temperatures all over the place. I check temperatures in all the coolers. All the refrigerators are required to have thermometers to show us that it's 41 degrees or below. But I don't take the thermometer's word for it, you know, the reading on the thermometer. I stab it with my thermometer. I have a professional thermometer that I take a lot of temperatures with. And I check. I check it on the top where they take the meat, like for the sandwiches. And I check it on the bottom where they store, because sometimes the top may not be quite as cold as the bottom. And when they're busy, they leave that top open. I mean, when they're busy, they don't have time to open and close it because they're making sandwiches after sandwich after
I
sandwich.
understand that.
So, you know, we understand if they're busy. And if it's a couple of degrees over, it's understandable. So we don't bust them on that, you know. So we do that. We check the chemicals in their dishwashers to make sure it's sanitizing properly. If it's not sanitized by chemical, sometimes they can sanitize by heat. The heat inside there gets so hot.
Yep.
I have a little gadget that I run through the dishwasher, and it tells me the temperature of the rinse cycle. And if that's over 160 degrees, it's proper. If it comes under, and because there's a gauge on each thermometer. And people will say to me, well, the gauge is reaching 180. And I tell them, the gauge doesn't mean anything to me. I want to see what it is inside. So,
Okay.
because the gauge could be off. So, I mean, that's about it. We check their certified food protection manager. We check to make sure that they have people who are trained in allergies. And for restaurants, food establishments that have 25 or more seats, they're required to have people trained in choke saver for Heimlich maneuver. And those people are required to have that at all times, from the minute they open to the minute they close.
Okay. So one person has to always be there.
Always has to be there.
With that.
Yep.
All right. Where do they get that training?
They can do a CPR class.
Okay.
If they don't want to do a CPR class, we're lucky enough to have a gentleman in town who's a retired firefighter. And so although we don't necessarily recommend people, this makes it so easy for them. And he doesn't charge them a lot of money. And he will go to the restaurant and train everybody at one time.
Yeah, there
So
you go.
we give them, and other than that, they'd have to sign up for a full-blown CPR class. And in all honesty, I don't even know where they would go for that. We're fortunate enough to have this gentleman here.
Yeah. Now, are some places easier to inspect than others?
Yes.
I think we touched on it a
Yes.
little bit.
To a point. If you go in there and you see a lot of things that are out of compliance, obviously it becomes a little more difficult. It takes you more time. But the smaller the place, for the most part, I would say, the easier it is. Although if you go into a large place that has a large kitchen and things are really good, and that's not to say there's places that are really bad. I would say that all the places in Westford are extremely compliant. I mean, and so you're talking to the food inspector. You're talking to the food inspector here, And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you right now that I will eat in every single establishment in this town. I have no qualms about doing that.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So easier. Some take longer. I wouldn't say that it's any more difficult because just for the size of the kitchen.
All right, let's take a variety store that they have wrapped sandwiches that come in.
Yep.
Okay, and they come in daily, I believe.
Not necessarily daily, but they are coated with an expiration date.
Oh, okay, okay. And the day on the sandwich is the last day they can be sold.
Correct.
Okay, all right. But you still have to inspect something, even though their hands really do not touch the food.
They don't need the certified food protection manager
Okay.
because they're not preparing food.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go into a variety store. I'm going to make sure it's clean. Some places, wherever, what I also do is I check ceiling tiles because if those tiles are stained, they become wet. There's obviously a leak in the roof.
Yep.
And that can lead to moisture and mold and mildew, although we are not mold experts by any stretch of the imagination, but we haven't changed them. So I'll check the refrigeration to make sure the food they have in the refrigerator is at the proper temperature. Soda, beer, and items like that, I don't even check. I don't care. They can serve that warm. It's a taste issue or a quality issue. They can, because most of that stuff you can just leave on the shelf. They don't have to sell it from a refrigerator. So we don't particularly spend a lot of time on that, but in their milk cooler, their dairy cooler.
What about the taps?
The soda?
Soda taps or beer taps?
We check that.
Okay.
The beer taps, they have a company come in and clean the beer taps monthly. We ask to see that.
Okay.
Or maybe 2 weeks, depending on the amount of beer they serve.
Yeah.
The soda taps, we look to see if they pull the nozzles off, and there's 2 pieces to the nozzle, and they sanitize those. So if I go in there and those nozzles are sticky, I know they didn't do it yesterday. I would say
They have to do it every night?
no.
Every day?
Depends on the amount of service that is going through there. But
Yep.
but if they're sticky, and I say to them, how often do you sanitize these? I usually like to use an open-ended question. Mm-hmm. How often do you sanitize these? And they'll say every night. And I'll say, except for last night, maybe?
Yeah.
You know, so I would say you really need to pull those down. And so what they do is they put them in a bowl of sanitizer. It sanitizes them, and then they'll put them back up the next day.
Okay. Okay, good. Now, what are the different types of establishments we have in town?
Well, we have variety stores.
Yep.
We have, for lack of a better term, sub and pizza shops,
Yes.
right? We have
Grocery stores?
grocery stores, nursing homes. There's one nursing home and there's one memory care facility.
Okay.
So those people are a high-risk population, and so we do them 3 times a year,
Okay.
just because they're serving a high-risk population.
Okay.
Something goes
Understand
wrong.
that. Yep.
They have their immune system isn't what a 40-year-old's is, so they have to be very careful.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and so is yours, Ray. And there's restaurants,
Yep.
you know, of different, you know, I mean, there's so many different restaurants here in town. There's the Cumberland Farms is a little bit unique because now they went to serving slices of pizza and hot dogs, and so now once they went to that,
Right.
even though they buy the pizza pre-made, they're required to have that certified food protection manager.
Oh, okay.
Because pizza is what's called potentially hazardous food. So we don't get very many complaints.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I would say that we average maybe 8 a year,
And
somewhere around there.
let's good leading into what should people look for if they're worried about, you know, the place not being in compliant at that point?
Well, you know, if they're not using gloves for ready-to-eat food, they should call us. You know, when we go there, if we see they're wearing, we would say, we got a complaint, you're not using gloves. And, you know, everybody's using gloves at that time. I can't cite them because I don't see it. But I can say,
Okay.
listen, we got a complaint, and sometimes we had a place that had multiple complaints about that. So I said, listen, we're getting a few complaints on you guys. I said, in my mind, I can't say that everybody's wrong. I said, but you got to do the right thing. But if we go in there and they're not using gloves, it's an automatic $50 fine.
Okay. Does that progress up or stay at 50?
We usually just keep it at 50. We're not trying to hurt anyone.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
But on a complaint, you know, if people feel as though they become ill from eating at a place, they should call us. We'll interview them on what they ate. We'll ask them if they had anything to drink. We'll ask them if they had ice in their drink, because ice is food.
That's a good one.
Yep. We'll ask them. We're actually going to ask them to go back on a 3-day history of what they ate, because it could be something that they ate prior to that, which is difficult to get out of anyone. But if you truly think, if you're sick enough that you truly think you got ill from eating at a restaurant, you should go to a doctor, and the only way that's confirmed is by taking a stool specimen.
Okay.
If it's not confirmed, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. I mean, we'll investigate it. We
Yeah,
investigate everyone that comes in, every single one, and sometimes when a couple of them come in, I may roll my eyes and say, okay, I'm going down there, but I don't know why. But we respond to every single complaint, and we follow up with the person who called. We're happy to do that.
And that's another point. They have to identify themselves?
No, they don't. If they want to be
okay.
anonymous, they can do that. But if they want to identify themselves, I said, would you like me to call you back? And they say, yeah, I would. I'd appreciate that. And most of the people are very appreciative of the fact that we follow up within 24 hours.
Okay.
Again, the complaint may come in when I'm not there because I'm part-time.
Yep.
So the first thing I do when I get in the next day is that.
Yeah. Good. All right. Arnie, I think that's going to be it for this session.
Okay.
Hope to have you around. We're possibly talking about doing a live inspection or parts
Yes,
of it
we
further
could,
down the line.
We've discussed that.
Yep.
So we could try to do that.
Keep tuned to that. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And if you have any complaints, just call the health department and they will forward you to Arnie's phone.